amazing, and I think yeah. So maybe we'll do the hello and welcome to the DXDAO BizDev call for October 31st, 2022. We're just coming back from DevCon Bogota, and just before the recording, we had some recap from Chris. You can read his post in the forum, and yeah, we're just like talking like recap and some of the stuff that has happened. And yeah, if anyone else wants to go now. Oh, Chris made a TikTok. Interesting.
TikTok. Where's the TikTok?
Reels is not TikTok, man.
Yeah, I'm happy to chat about my post, which is more related to some of the stuff Chris had in his end of his post. Um, I liked, yeah, at the retreat, I liked. I missed some of the beginning because I was still sick, stuck in Bogota. But I liked that, like the group worked through things and eventually came up with this like North Star of DXDAO, and I think the enable community freedom is the best we've seen so far. And so, um, but then the last day we were there, when we started doing the objectives and things, to me it seemed like the objectives didn't actually originate from the North Star, and so we kind of went from the ground up rather than from the top down. And so I was trying to think more about, if DXDAO decides that that's its North Star, what does that mean? And what are each of those three things, and how they can be pillars of of DXDAO, and what makes up each one of those. And so I just went kind of down from the top into what it meant to me, which I shared through this kind of chart, or this graphic, and then the breakdown of it. And really the enable part seems to be the most interesting, where most of the stuff can be done. It allows you to figure out what DXDAO has done so far and how it fits into that, and then it allows you to identify parts of enable community freedom that maybe have never been concentrated on, and need more attention. And then the whole point of this is that, like we just had on the Swapper call, we're discussing potential routes forward for Swapper, and there's lots of opportunity and options, and we know what capital and what resources DXDAO has, or what it might need for achieving those routes. But the most important thing would be to say, how do those routes fit into the overall goals of DXDAO? And that's why I think the North Star, and understanding what makes up the North Star, is really important, because without that, making decisions around specific products or specific squads within DXDAO becomes much harder to answer, unless you put it in relation to the long-term big goals of DXDAO. And so, yeah, what I found interesting was with like the enabling part of enable community freedom, the three groups that make that up, to me, were the researching and learning part, which we talked a lot about, like, well, if Swapper is going to move forward, we need like to do a bunch of research, or a researcher to lead that, to like determine if we're going to go with liquidity, .eth kind of thing, like who's going to be responsible for determining the best technical path to achieve that mission. And so research and learning, and having everyone within the DXDAO community out there using things in the space, experimenting, coming up with new ideas, bringing those ideas to DXDAO, understanding what products exist already in the space, what products we can borrow from, since DXDAO tends to borrow, at least smart contracts rather than build smart contracts from scratch. In this open source world, that's quite common, so it's okay. But understanding what can be borrowed, what would need to be built, how you put the things together, that's all part of this research and learn vertical. And then there's the next important vertical is create and build, which is once you understand all of that and you've done your research and you've prepared and you have a game plan, you then need to figure out, with your resources, with your capital, do you build it from scratch? Do you borrow it? What do you have to create and build to achieve the goal? Do you invest in or support other people that are building it, that you can then borrow from and bring it into your ecosystem? And then that's like getting the products, like that's achieving the products that the DXDAO has set out to want and desire, which is going to allow us to enable. And that's so far for DXDAO, that's been a lot largely based on building things that DXDAO itself needs, right? And so we've used DXDAO as the example of, if DXDAO is going to, at first enable mostly people, DAOs in the DAO space, DXDAO is a great example of a proper DAO. And so if we need those tools and when we build it for ourselves, we're assuming that other DAOs will need it as well. And so that's a decent direction to move, is building things that DXDAO needs, because then we think other DAOs will need it as well. And then once we have the tools, the third vertical, which is also really important, is the showing and educating, which is using all of the things that we've built for ourselves, showing the world how those things are used, which we do a little bit with our product ownership and ENS and IPFS and things. And now more and more people are paying attention to things like that. And then actively educating the world on why this stuff matters and how to use the stuff. And I guess part of showing and educating is also something that DXDAO has never really done, is like the paid marketing. I mean, obviously we do organic marketing through social and posts and conferences and talks and stuff. But then how does like, if you want to show the world some direction or some vision that you have, typically you do that through traditional forms of marketing. That can be paid marketing, that can be email marketing. So like the question of like, should DXDAO start collecting email addresses? Because even though that seems like a centralized mechanism, if that allows DXDAO to show tens of thousands of more people in the space, in the world, the way and what it's been building and creating, should it actually use email marketing? And so showing and educating is made up of lots of different things. And so those three verticals are just within the enable part. Understanding community and what freedom means as well can go deeper into. But I think for the group to come to some agreement on what enable community freedom means and get that potentially approved by the DXDAO community would then allow the decisions that come down from there to specific products, to the ecosystem of all of our things and how that fits together, would help clarify the path forward, so you can make smaller important decisions that all fit within the greater vision. And I think Banky had some good comments because he raised some unanswered questions, and there's like this end goal and end vision of DXDAO, and then within that you actually probably want to make specific objectives and verticals. And I think the OKRs that we came up with at the retreat, as I said before, were like different than coming from these enable community freedom. And so coming up with objectives that directly tie into enable community freedom would help make other decisions that DXDAO has to make easier. So that's a long-winded dive into this post and at least how I was thinking about the retreat. There's a bunch of open questions, and would love to have more people's observations and feedback, like Venki had shared. This is not easy. This is not an easy task, but I think it's really important that we all kind of agree on what the North Star is and what it means, actually, so that the other decisions can come from that. But that's all.
Yeah, cool. I think like just personally, I like what you said. Maybe sort of like the metaphor would be to, I don't know, like build a tree and then you're drawing like what the tree, or like grow a tree, whatever. You're drawing like what the tree looks like, and yeah, now you have a picture of the tree, but you have to like sort of like, I guess, build the roots and like do the, so like drawing the trees like top down, and then like bottom up is like figuring out like what are these quarters OKRs, and like what are we doing like this quarter, what are we doing in the next like couple of months.
Yeah, and to your question, so we wrote down a bunch of objectives on paper, and we have pictures of those, and we can share those. I guess they could go up in the forum as well, but they're less related to like this post that I just discussed. They were like 85% of them were related more to like operational operations and sorting out governance and things within DXDAO, which is also important, but that was all very specific to fixing some things that aren't working within DXDAO rather than enable community freedom, which obviously if you don't fix the things, you can't enable community freedom. So that's also important, but it's a more narrow set of objectives, I think.
All right. Venkat, do you want to share more maybe? You are muted if you're trying to talk.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I was asking if you want to add something, because yeah.
No, I didn't attend the retreat, and then I just read this post by Sky, so I was a bit confused because to me when we see a North Star, I mean it's supposed to be like laser focused attempt, so we should look for like one objective, and then from there you drill down to what are the key results that we will have for different products under DXDAO, right? So it was a bit confusing, and then so I responded to Sky's post, but no, we also discussed about this in this product strategy call, but I will read again and then maybe comment later on. But I don't have anything right now.
Yeah, so
right.
like you're raising like your points about something very specific, like the number of total markets created by users or an Omen, or the number of unique wallets using Swapper. Those are very like statistical things related to a certain product of DXDAO, which definitely is important when measuring products. But in my mind, those statistics, like number of unique wallets for Swapper, is like way below, like way down the line in terms of, okay, if we're going to enable community freedom, one of those things is a permissionless private AMM called Swapper, which could be liquidity and trading and echo routing and enabling traders across the space. It's like, well, what's the true, the whole, like, yeah, what's the enable community freedom version for Swapper? Like, what's the goal of Swapper in terms of its long-term mission and how it fits into enable community freedom? Then once you understand that, then you start to come up with, okay, one of those things is we want 100,000 people in the space to like use Swapper as its go-to thing for trading, and that's like a very specific numbered measurement. But that objective doesn't answer, like we did on the Swapper call earlier. It's like, what's the path that Swapper should take? We have 3 potential routes. We need to figure out a route that DXDAO wants to take with Swapper before we come up with like how many wallets we want to use Swapper, right? It's like it's irrelevant, but it's like down the waterfall from what's the route that Swapper should take first, I think, right?
Yeah. So this is for Swapper. Yeah. So when it comes to the objectives of DXDAO, we still need to figure out a way in terms of when we define an objective, it has to be measurable. If we put a diagram with so many different blocks, we will probably want to pick just 1 or 2 out of these, like 25 maybe. We might want to just pick 1 or 2 from these and say that, okay, this is going to be the objective for DXDAO in the coming next 2 to 3 years. Because everything is distinct, and it is impossible for any product to satisfy all of these.
Yeah. So you're saying that, yeah, come up with a measurable objective that if that happened, people would argue that DXDAO is on its path towards enable community freedom.
Yeah. And it also gives products that we are building, like Swapper or Davi or any other product that we are building, or gives us that, okay, this is the objective that we are going towards. For now, the 3 routes that Swapper is talking about, I mean, it has to fit into what is the objective of DXDAO. If the objective of DXDAO is clear, then it will automatically define the roadmap for Swapper.
Totally. So I think
that makes sense. Yeah.
The exercise of coming up with objectives for DXDAO based on this North Star still needs to be worked on. Yeah, I guess we can share the ones that were come up with on the last day of the retreat. We can share those, and I'm not sure that they. Yeah, I guess we can evaluate those and see how many of those still make sense, and then I think we still need to come up with more tangible objectives related to enable community freedom, if that's what DXDAO is trying to achieve. I'm going to put those objectives from the treat on Friday into I'll just put it into a shared doc. There are just pictures. Okay, I'll just write them up actually. And so that'll be easier to talk about, because I'm hypothetically talking about pictures we took of some paper at a thing that no one remembers. So sorry. I'll share that later today.
Yeah, so we'd love to see that. And yeah, so sort of like figure out, yeah, what are these objectives and how are we aiming for them? Yeah, I don't know. Does anyone else want to share some things from the week from Bogota? Yeah, I don't know.
I think Keenan wanted to, but as he said, he's pretty sick and he can't really talk. So he put most of his relevant comments in the refocus post on the forum, which we can asynchronously people can share their ideas specifically related to that. And yes, we had dates, targeted dates and things for the different phases. But yeah, there's obviously can be some delay, but moving towards the goals laid out in that initial proposal that passed with the goals of the phases is still known, and so we can make progress towards that. However, and I guess phase 3 is the hardest one, and that is highly dependent on what we just talked about, right? It's going to be very hard to craft the future path of phases of DXDAO without very clearly understanding the goal of DXDAO and the things that it's moving towards and the objectives that it's trying to reach, and then how you operationally achieve that. All that will come from that, and so that they go hand in hand together, I think.
Yeah, I like the fact that we're sort of like stopping for a second and figuring this out instead of like just hammering at some direction that we're not sure is right, I guess. Yeah.
One question. Did we ask everybody in the retreat about what they think about the goal of DXDAO should be?
The way that it worked, Venki, is that we sat down and we were like split up into individual tables, probably 6 or 7 different tables. And then we discussed basically what everybody felt they were doing at the moment and how they were building things and why they were building things. And slowly but surely we took all of that information. We kept on the people kept on mixing up until we were left with basically 3 sheets of a whole bunch of key points that had been basically distilled from the previous discussions. And then slowly from that, we were asked as 3 separate teams to basically say to give like 1 or 2 words of what everything on that sheet of paper means to everybody. And we basically came up with that. It wasn't enable community freedom. It was something like build or something like that. Some build community freedom, if I remember correctly. So it wasn't that we basically came up with those thoughts. It was that those thoughts were already everything that people were already thinking. We just clarified it and simplified it into like basically a simple statement that can become a vision statement. And a vision statement is something that basically people believe in, something that you aspire to, even though you might not achieve it in the next 5 years or something. It's the thing that the DXDAO would aspire to become or aspire to achieve. As Sky was saying, the next thing we have to do is we now have to clarify how we're going to do that. And that basically becomes like our mission statement, if you want to call it that. And I know lots of people mistake those two things, but they're not the same thing. The mission statement basically should clarify the technology that we're going to use or the product that we're going to use, and then how that actually satisfies the customers as well as the investors as well as the employees. Something to that line. And that breakdown that Sky did, I mean, from my opinion, that was an excellent assessment of all the different angles that we could possibly take. I mean, it took a lot of thinking and that's basically where we would build our objectives, the operational plan, once we clarify that mission. But now we would have to clarify the mission of how we're going to do it. That's it.
Yeah, that sounds. I mean, it sounds very reasonable. I want to see the sort of like the OKRs that you guys wrote, and yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, me too.
I saw Melanie writing about like maybe talking about Swapper or Nimi. I saw there's some friction on those. I guess on Nimi as well in the chat. In the forums. Dave, Zed, you wanna say a few words? I don't know.
What was the question about Nimi?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know, like current status and updates and stuff.
I mean, I could say a little bit. I mean, Nimi at Bogota was pretty exciting. At least day one, we talked with a lot of industry people, and they were excited. And I was actually shocked of how many people knew who we were. We actually created on the spot. We created like a Nimi T-shirt because we wanted people to know that we were there and they could come up and talk to us. And like the first thing that happened, went into the conference and we took the escalator up, and then people said like, "Oh, Nimi, I love you guys!" Like screaming from the other side, and like people pointing at us. I'm like, "What the fuck? How is that even possible? Is this a joke?" Like, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it didn't happen all the time, but maybe it was just coincident that happened like the first minute we went in. But yeah, people are happy about Nimi, and ENS are happy about Nimi. Nimi was on the big stage when Nick presented community projects, super exciting. Other than that, we did like event-based templates, which were, I think, in my opinion, at least a success, even though we had huge, like very, very bad luck with the incident that happened to Mirko, which is helping us on Nimi. And yeah, I mean, we had a couple of partnerships lined up, and we paused it basically. But other than that, I would say it was pretty successful for Nimi. Coming up, I don't know. We are talking closely with ENS about the future. They see us as one of the main community projects, I guess, and that's super exciting. That's all. Any questions?
Yeah, very cool. Like I can say that like when I go to conferences now, instead of like, hey, like taking a selfie or whatever, I just send, my Nimi in, like, that's how I introduce myself. And yeah, it's just like a great thing.
We actually made something for the conference too. I ordered some NFC stickers. They're like holographic, a little bit thicker than normal stickers, so they feel like high quality. And you put them. We basically gave them away. We had 500 in the conference. We programmed them on the spot. It takes like 10 seconds. We asked them for their ENS. We programmed them and put their ENS on the sticker. So when you scan this sticker with someone else's phone, then you actually go to their Nimi profile. So even when they don't have a Nimi profile set up, they have this placeholder Nimi profile, which basically incentivizes them even more to set up their Nimi profiles. So yeah, a lot of people put this stickers on their phone or on their bags, and now you don't even need to scan the QR codes anymore. So you could just basically tap with your phone and you go to someone's ENS. We're super successful, and I think we're gonna do this again. Let's see which kind of methods we're gonna use this time, and maybe do some NFC clothing or NFC like swag. But yeah, that was super nice.
Cool. And I don't know, maybe this is like off topic for this, but I saw there's like the whole like Nimi incubation NIMI spin out thing that is still sort of like pending. I don't know if you guys have any updates on that or like thoughts on that.
What is pending?
Sorry.
What is pending?
Like what's the status of that? I'm not sure it's been finalized now.
No, I think it's like we passed the proposal, but I guess people still have questions, and I'm not sure. I don't think so much us contributors having questions. I think maybe we didn't communicate the incubation well enough, and also we don't know what an incubation means yet. It is still very unclear. So yeah, I don't know. It is the proposal passed, and incubation should have gone through.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I saw it being popped up. I like some people were here like an hour before, right? Because of the hour change, and I said that I don't think DXDAO knows what an incubation is, and I don't think like you guys know exactly what an incubation is, and that's that's the nature of these things, and sometimes when you go through like the example is like legal stuff or legal contracts, then they try to think of like every fucking detail, and they exhaust you with all these things, and yeah, it's I don't think we should do that here, and now we're trying to figure out. Yeah, okay, so DXDAO is given like 100K to NIMI, gets 10% of the tokens, and then the level of contribution from DXDAO members is unknown. The level of contribution of maybe NIMI members back to DXDAO is unknown, and that's fine. I think like we're experimenting here, and that's the nature of it. And we're like sort of like DXDAO is taking a risk on the NIMI team, and the NIMI team is giving quite a bit of money to back to DXDAO, and all of these things are like okay. In my opinion, right? Like, I don't know if I'm right, but yeah, this is kind of like my thoughts in regard to this. Yeah.
When do you
if anyone
think we should talk about it?
I don't know. Happy to like maybe dedicate. I don't know, maybe the next week call. Like, because if we're in the nature of planning, like it's interesting what will become of this call because, yeah, maybe planning some of this stuff.
We were supposed to talk about a little bit about NIMI and incubation last week on Friday. It was last on the agenda, and we just skipped it, which actually made me a little bit irritated because I had a lot of work to do, and I waited through the whole call, and then we just ended the call. So I guess I don't know when. It just feels like we're always pushing this away and maybe never talking about it. But yeah, it would be good to we could even have its own call, and it doesn't need to be the Monday call or whatever call. Just sit down and just talk about how things are going and all of that. And whoever wants to join can join.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very in favor of like this spin out model. I think it's hard for like an organization to innovate, and I think I've said this many times, but there are like many aspects to it, and yeah, I think it will be good if NIMI is somewhat independent. It could get support from DXDAO. I think like it will become a win-win for both sides, because everybody has like a vested interest, and like I said before, like we're taking risks on each other basically. DXDAO is taking a risk on NIMI, and NIMI is taking a risk on DXDAO. So yeah.
Yep. Cool. I don't know. I would love to maybe talk about this week sometime. We could do it on the Friday strategy call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Melanie also mentioned the swapper, maybe. Has there been any discussion on that?
A lot of discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah. We, I mean, obviously, in the proposal that Keenan posted about reconstructing and refocusing, a lot is about the budget and how much we spend, and I think overall the sentiment was swapper is costing too much and not making enough revenue or profit. So me and Venki started immediately working on how much Swapper is costing. Obviously, we slashed a lot of the cost, and it is a sad thing because slashing cost means slashing people. We don't have offices, or we're not doing Swapper retreats or something like that. So it is actually, yeah. I mean, we don't work. Currently, we only have, I think, one active contractor, if I'm not mistaken, and we didn't fire, but we ended the engagement with 5 contributors basically, or 1 contributor and 4 contractors. And from our side, let's just say this: like the Space Inch developers has been like part of Swapper. We worked with them for a while, and they feel as much as us as you others feel like our co-workers. They felt like our co-workers and not just contractors. So doing that was not easy, and it was nothing against them personally. It was just they were contractors and they were costing us upfront more money than regular contributors. So yeah, that was the immediate step, and then we started making some planning into the retreat for something I would call like the three routes of Swapper, that at least from us we're planning like how could we take Swapper forward and what's the routes for it. I don't know if you want me to take the routes now or
Yeah, why not?
I mean, I don't think we have the time.
Yeah, do you want to just maybe like briefly state for each one of them, like not going too much in depth?
Yeah,
And I guess
sure.
like there will be a call on that as well.
I mean, we already talked about this. Yeah, I mean, Venki also wants to wait for the post. I mean, I could just say it fast. So first route would be letting Swapper be as is. Don't touch it. Maintain it. Basically, make it work with any new, like some new network popping off and the echo router is needed there. Then we basically could launch in a new network or add a new AMAN, but we don't build any new features. We keep it this as it is right now. This is a route where we use the least resources, basically just keeping Swapper being like a below 5-man team. Another route would be exploring other protocols. Right now we're stuck with Uniswap v2, and route number 3, which is like an addition on route number 2, which is not only exploring other protocols but actually separating Swapper into multiple products, two products, taking use of what we built and trying to focus on. As an example, we create a product called liquidity.eth, which is like liquidity as a service, where we tap into multiple protocols, not just Uniswap v2, and we basically do liquidity as a service and a new type of fee sharing protocol on existing like leading protocols. So taking Uniswap v3 and basically adding what we've tried to do for Uniswap v2, but doing it with much like less efforts, just creating the liquidity engine, not creating the AMM, and try to get that tapped into other AMMs. So basically have liquidity.eth, all the liquidity sources already be tapped into 1inch and cow protocol. And as I said, we don't have much time. I think that's why we don't want to talk about this in a short span. It is quite complex, and we don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
But the three routes overall, they have different like resources and as it looks like right now, like DXDAO wants to cut budget until we have like a good idea, right? So the idea is to get a good enough idea where we can make revenue, make profit, and build up a team surrounding that. And if it's Swapper or another team, it doesn't matter, I think. But for now, at least, Swapper has ideas to grow, to be better, get better, learn from its mistakes, and I think that's like the route number 3 at least.
All right, cool. Yeah, interesting. I think this is sad that I miss it all. Let's just put it this way. But yeah, super interesting. And I think it's I don't know, I feel like maturity from all of it. So yeah. Any other thoughts, comments? No. Yeah, did anyone want to talk about anything else?
That's enough.
Yeah, okay. I guess we can finish a little early. Yeah. And I guess maybe if people want to just chat, just talk about like Bogota experiences, like after like if you get there after the recording and yeah, just talk some stuff. I'd love to hear. So yeah,